Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at matching in Python. So what is matching? Well, as you can imagine, it's like trying to get the correct shape through the correct hole. You have to find the one that matches. And in other languages, this is a switch statement. This is a JavaScript switch statement. And the match statement is something that Python brought in very recently. Beforehand, if you wanted to do it, you would do this. You'd have a whole bunch of if and else statements all the way until your wildcard, which is your equivalent else. And obviously this has some advantages, but also some limitations. So the new case statement or match statement is that you match your subject and then you see if it matches any of the patterns. Then at the bottom, if it doesn't match any, you have a wildcard. So obviously that looks a bit confusing. So let's do it with some real examples. So in this example here, we take in a status code for an HTTP error. And if it's 400, because we're looking at status, if it's 400, we return bad request. 404, not found. 418, I'm a teapot, and this matches anything, then something is wrong. So we define the function, and we match all of them, and you can see everything's happened. But say we have lots of things that return the same thing, then we can use this bar, and we can say if it matches any of those, print not allowed. And you can see for 401 and 404, it's gone to the not allowed. All the others have done something different. But we can also get rid of our default. And so if we run this one, you see that it returns none because there's no point where it's been matched for the 500. And so we could add a return at the bottom, or we could use the wildcard, both work. So now we're going to match something more sophisticated, and it's going to be a tuple called point. And we match our point, and we say if it's 0, 0, then it's the origin. If it's 0, y, then it's just got a y coordinate. If it's x, it's got an x coordinate. If it's both, it's got a coordinate. And you see that if we put in lost at the bottom, it gives us a value error saying not a point. But you can see that it's done all the different lines for the different points. So next we define a class point, which has an integer x and an integer y, and we're saying that we can match these arguments x and y, and then we define a constructor. So you can see here we're taking in the point, and it's very similar to before. The only difference is that we're matching a point instance rather than just the tuple. And you can see here this is just a default point. And unsurprisingly we run it and we get the same output. Although obviously the messages are slightly different. And another cool thing you can do is you can have this only works with pattern matching, but you can say that the x and the y are equal, then it's on this diagonal. And so first we see if this is true, and if and only if this is true, it does the next bit. So we run this, and you see the first two run their usual code. Notice that because this bit is above the origin bit, it's therefore matched the origin to this bit, and matched, the 6, 6 to here. And of course we then move that down and run it again. Then now it matches the origin to the origin. Another thing you can do is you just have to match a single point. You can match multiple points. And saying if it's an empty list, it's an empty list. If it's got one point in and it's the origin, then run this bit. If we've just got a single point or 2 points, and then of course at the end it's, if it turns out that there's something else in the list. And so you can see it's done all of the outputs. The ones that it's come up on have been this one, when we haven't got a single point or 2 points in this form, and when we haven't actually put a list in. Another thing that you can do is you can put the wildcard in somewhere else. So what we're doing is we're matching a tuple, and we're saying if it has this form, then print this. If it has this form, then print this. Otherwise, do nothing. And so when we run it, you can see that for warning 4540, it realizes the code is 45, but just prints a warning has been received. When we match error 5085, it fails on this one, but then it goes error, code, and this kind of variable that it's ignoring, and then just prints the code is 50. It does something similar here, where the code is 70 and the underscore is 94, and then for a warning it hasn't matched any of them, so it hasn't printed anything. Finally, we can also check lists, so you don't have to just have a single element, you can have multiple elements. So you can see here this Z is the spill, and that's very similar to the spill in other uses, because it's the same thing really, it's just being used in a case statement. And so we can take in this data, which is a list, and if it's got a single element, two elements, or multiple elements, and this just matches any number of elements that haven't matched the first two and have at least two in. And then finally, if it's not a list, it's not a list. And we can run that and see that it's all worked. So you can see that pattern matching is a very useful skill to know. It's very new in Python, although maybe by the time you watch this, it's not. It can quite easily speed up your program and have some cool features that the switch statement doesn't have in other languages. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, learnt a lot, and I'll see you again, same time next week. Till then.